Arthur John Shawcross, known as the Genesee River Killer, was born in Maine on June 6, 1945. He was one of 4 children. His family moved to New York when he was young. The elder Shawcross was a bigamist. After learning that her military husband had first married a woman in another country and had a child with her, Arthur's mother made their home life unbearable. Young Arthur was used to using violence to defend himself against bullies at school. He ran away from home more than once. He spent as much time away from home as possible. He claims he was molested by an aunt at age 9, but his family disputes his claim. By age 11, he began experimenting with his sexuality, including homosexuality and bestiality. It's hard to determine what the truth is since Shawcross was a pathological liar. Shawcross was married and divorced twice before being drafted to serve in Vietnam in October of 1967. Both marriages were shattered by Shawcross's spousal abuse and violence. In 1968, Shawcross served 2 years of a 5-year sentence for arson. As time went on, his violent tendencies got worse, and the arsonist became a cold-blooded murderer. At the end of April in 1972, Shawcross married his 3rd wife, who was pregnant with his child. 3 weeks earlier, on April 7, 1972, he took a 10-year-old boy named Jake Blake, his neighbor at the time, fishing. Jake was never heard from again. 5 months later, authorities found Jake's body, and an analysis showed he suffered from sexual assault before his death. Around the same time, Shawcross murdered 8-year-old Karen Ann Hill. He was caught after neighbors witnessed the murder with the girl near a bridge shortly before her death. Karen showed signs of rape. Shawcross was sentenced to 25 years in prison, but served less than 15 years. He was paroled in April of 1987. Shawcross had difficulty settling down when he was released, as he was chased out of homes and fired from workplaces as soon as neighbors and employers found out about his criminal record. Eventually, he settled in Rochester, New York, and lived with a woman named Clara. On Shawcross's second crime spree, his victims were Dorothy Blackburn, age 27. She disappeared on March 18, 1988. Her body was discovered on March 24, 1988, bearing deep bite marks around the genitals. She was found in Salmon Creek, northwest of Rochester. She was a prostitute who Shawcross strangled, later complaining that she had bitten his penis and called him a faggot. Anna Marie Steffen, age 28, disappeared July 9, 1988. Her body was discovered on September 11, 1988. Shawcross picked her up and took her to the Genesee River Gorge near Driving Park Bridge. Shawcross claimed that she had offered him sex for $20, but when he was unable to get an erection, she began to make fun of him. He became angry and punched her to the ground. She tried to get away from him by crawling into the water, but he went in after her and held her under the water by her throat until she drowned. He later would tell police he couldn't be bothered to conceal her body, and he just let it float downstream. It later became caught up in the debris downstream, where, because of warmer conditions, it rapidly decomposed. Dorothy Keeler, age 59, disappeared on July 29, 1989. Her body was discovered on October 21st, 1989 on Seth Green Island. Dorothy was a homeless woman that Shawcross met when she worked as a waitress in a diner that he often frequented. The two struck up a friendship, which quickly turned into an affair. One afternoon, Arthur was going to the river to fish, and Keeler asked him to take her with him, and he agreed. According to Shawcross, they spent the morning fishing and making love, until the afternoon when it started to rain. They huddled together under a shelter that he had built. And then he got into an argument with her about her stealing money and about his relationships with Clara and Rose. He claimed she threatened to tell the other women about their affair, and he became angry, picked up a log, and beat her on the side of the head, killing her instantly. He hid her body under a fallen tree and went home. He told police later that he returned to the spot several months later and removed the skull and dumped it in the river. Fishermen eventually found Keeler's remains, but Shawcross was never connected with the woman, even though he had been seen with her regularly and often went to the fishing spot where he had left her body. Her severed skull is still missing to this day. Patricia Patty Ives, age 25, disappeared on September 29, 1989. Her body was discovered on October 27, 1989. Shawcross claimed that she offered him sex for $25 when he approached the same diner that Keeler had worked. He agreed, and they went to a construction site. Shawcross said while they were having sex, he caught Ives trying to steal his wallet. He pushed her roughly to the ground, and when she began to cry, he anally raped her, and he began strangling her till she was still. He hid her body under some scraps of construction material. He waited till dark, then he went home. June Stotts, age 30, disappeared on October 23, 1989. Her body was found on November 23, 1989 in the Genesee River Gorge. June was a friend of Arthur and Rose and a regular visitor to their home. She also had a mental condition that made her have the mind of a child. Shawcross saw her sitting near the river one warm November day and asked her to go for a ride with him. She accepted, and they drove down to a local beach where they played on the sand and fed the birds before they walked to a deserted area and lay down on the ground to make love. At some point in their lovemaking, Shawcross claims that he made an innocent comment about her not being a virgin, and she started screaming. He then laid his hand over her mouth to silence her, but soon realized that he had suffocated her. He then cut her open with his knife so that she would decompose quicker, and covered her with a blanket and some brush and left her. He later claimed to have removed her vagina and some of her organs and ate them. Her boyfriend had waited 3 weeks to report her missing. Marie Welch, age 22, disappeared November 5, 1989. Her body was discovered January 5, 1990. Shawcross claims he picked up Marie Welch from Lake Avenue and took her to a small beach near the banks of the Genesee River, where they argued over a price before they began having sex. Again, he claims that she tried to take his wallet and he strangled her. He later changed his story and told investigators that he had become angry and killed her when he realized that she was menstruating. He drove further down the road next to the river and dumped her body in some bushes. On November 11th, police investigators from the 60-strong Serial Crimes Unit identified the body of Frances Brown. Incredibly, no one in the newly formed task force uncovered the fact that a known sex offender and a child killer who was still on parole was living in their midst. Frances Franny Brown, age 22, disappeared November 11, 1989. Her body was discovered November 15, 1989, in the Genesee River Gorge. Shawcross claimed that he choked Brown with his penis while having oral sex and continued to have sex with her body after she died. When he dumped her body down a nearby embankment, so much debris was dragged down with it that police thought the body had been covered intentionally. Kimberly Logan, age 30, disappeared November 15, 1989. Her body was also discovered on November 15, 1989, the same day she went missing. She had been brutally kicked and beaten. Leaves were crammed down her throat, much like what Shawcross did to 8-year-old Karen Ann Hill. Elizabeth Liz Gibson, age 29, disappeared November 25, 1989. Her body was discovered November 27, 1989. She got into Shawcross's car to keep herself warm while he was getting coffee from a diner. They had oral sex in the car, and again, he claimed that she tried to take his wallet and he got angry and strangled her. Shawcross later told police that she had struggled so hard that she had broken the gear shift in his car. He disposed of Gibson's body in a new area near Wayne County as he feared that the police were getting too close. Darlene Trippi, age 32, disappeared December 15, 1989. Her body was discovered January 5, 1990. Shawcross picked Darlene Trippi up from Lake Avenue area and drove to an isolated car park. After the money was paid, they indulged in oral sex, but Shawcross failed to get an erection. She became frustrated and called him names, and he choked her until she lay dead under him. He dumped her body in open woodland. June Cicero, age 33, disappeared December 17, 1989. Her body was discovered January 3, 1990. Shawcross picked up June and took her to another isolated area and attempted sex with her before strangling her. Virtually right under the noses of the investigating police, the Genesee River Killer had struck again. This time he dumped the body off a bridge over the Salmon River. 2 days later, he returned to the dump site with a small handsaw and cut the vagina from her frozen body and ate it. Felicia Stephens, age 20, disappeared December 28, 1989. Her body was discovered December 31, 1989. The final victim was another prostitute, a black woman named Felicia Stephens. In later interviews, he stated that he could not recall any details of Felicia's murder, only that she was black and he had strangled her and dumped her body near those of Jean Cicero and Dorothy Blackburn. On December 31, 1989, hikers found a pair of blue jeans with her ID in the pocket. An aerial search found the body on January 3rd. It also spotted a vehicle cruising the area and recorded its license number, tracing the plate back to Arthur's live-in girlfriend. He was arrested on January 5, 1990. Before Shawcross was arrested, police sought assistance from the FBI. They divided the unsolved prostitute murders into subgroups according to method and position. They developed a profile that described the killer as a white male in his 20s or 30s, who was strong, probably with a previous criminal record, familiar with the area, and comfortable enough with the victims that they would enter his vehicle without hesitation. The lack of sexual interference indicated it might be someone with sexual dysfunction. The post-mortem injury inflicted on June Stott, and not any other victim, indicated that the killer was becoming more comfortable around corpses, probably returning to the crime scene again later to relive the attack. The discovery of the body of Elizabeth Gibson on November 27th brought a breakthrough. Suspect Mitch had been seen with her shortly before her disappearance, but they seemed no closer to establishing his identity. Police tried various tactics, including canvassing all the local bars, to no avail. When a pair of discarded jeans was discovered near the river on December 31, 1989, containing an ID card for a girl named Felicia Stephens, police began an aerial search of the surrounding area. On January 2, 1990, a helicopter spotted what appeared to be a naked female body lying on the ice surface of the river by a bridge in the forest. The body was not Felicia Stephens, but that of a missing prostitute named June Cicero. She had also been mutilated post-mortem as well as split practically in half. More importantly, a helicopter spotted a man standing on the bridge next to a small van. He appeared to be masturbating or urinating. Fortunately for the authorities, Shawcross had indeed returned to the scene of one of his crimes to relive the pleasure of the attack. Patrol teams were alerted to the vehicle, but Shawcross sped away. They finally tracked down Shawcross, and when they approached him, he agreed to assist the police with their inquiries. They asked for his driver's license. He admitted he didn't have one, and then he revealed that he had been in jail for manslaughter. Upon being questioned by the police, he revealed the earlier childhood deaths and a grandiose account of his Vietnam War service, which was later discounted. A photo taken of him during the initial questioning soon confirmed his identity as Mitch, and official inquiries unearthed the reason for Shawcross' sealed record, which prevented the police from tracking him down sooner. Shawcross wouldn't admit to the murders, though, until police confirmed that a piece of jewelry he had given to Clara Neal had previously belonged to victim June Cicero. Shawcross admitted to most of the murders when police threatened to implicate Clara in the killings. He gave detailed excuses as to why he had been forced to kill each one. He even admitted to the killing of 2 undiscovered bodies, those of prostitutes Maria Welch and Darlene Trippi, leading investigators to their bodies. His formal confession was nearly 80 pages long. In November 1990, Shawcross was tried by the Monroe County First Assistant District Attorney, Charles J. Siragusa, for the 10 murders that occurred in Monroe County. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, with testimony from a psychiatrist that he suffered from dissociative personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and possible child abuse. The former stemmed from his service in the Vietnam War, his many outlandish tales of committing gruesome crimes, including cannibalism, often while he was alone in the jungle, and the horror stories he told other people about the war when he returned from his tour of duty. Profiler Robert Ressler reviewed the PTSD claim on behalf of the prosecution before the trial, writing that his allegations about the Vietnam War were untrue, while a psychiatrist also stated that he had antisocial personality disorder. In the end, after 13 weeks, Shawcross was found guilty of 10 counts of second-degree murder and was sentenced to a total of 250 years to life in prison for the Monroe County killings. A few months later, Shawcross was taken to Wayne County to be tried for Elizabeth Gibson's murder. He pleaded guilty to the murder and was later given a life sentence. Serial killers often have pen pal friendships. Shawcross developed one with a man named John Paul Fay. Fay had dark fantasies about violence and death, and he ended up forming a creepy connection with Shawcross as pen pals. Fay was angry and unemployed. He lived in his aunt's basement and drunk most of the time. He surfed the net, looking for gory crime scene photos. He collected fake shrunken heads and fantasized about decapitating people. His family referred to him as Dracula, which made him smile. He wanted to be a monster. Then he met one. Using the nickname Sawman, Fay began to buy and trade Shawcross's prison art. The two paired up and formed a bond that Fay called the closest to a wholesome relationship I've ever had. The correspondence and bond went on for years. Eventually, it sizzled out. Shawcross, who'd always been overweight and out of shape, started getting sick. Fay, whose drinking and drug use was increasing, started getting sicker. Shawcross died in prison of a heart attack in 2008 at age 63. Fay fell further, moving on to hard drugs. He crashed cars, bounced in and out of jail, threatened to cut off a girlfriend's head when she brought home the wrong Chinese takeout. Eventually, he landed in a state hospital, committed for detox and a psychiatric evaluation. Since Faye's release, he's straightened up, or at least enough to write about his experience. He says that it's been healing.
Having bought a pair of handcuffs and shackles for the legs, I would shackle myself to practice being in them in case I was ever arrested. You can't move too quickly. You'll hurt your ankles and you hurt your hands. I assumed with the mindset I had that I would be spending a lot of time in prison. Because I happen to own the shackles and handcuffs, I have used them on 2 people that I can recall. The blackouts I had, who knows, maybe there's more.
Well, for a living, John traded grisly collectibles on the internet like a real body bag and a fake severed limb. But what was really in demand was serial killer artwork. So using the nickname Sawman, John began to buy and trade this type of art. Now, while doing this, Sawman got the attention of one of America's most notorious serial killers, whose weapon of choice was, you guessed it, a saw. Take a look.
Around the year 2000, I formed a relationship with one of the world's most evil serial killers, Arthur Shawcross, and I had been selling his artwork on eBay, and so we just formed a business relationship, and it became a very close friendship, and I call it a brotherhood of ghouls. Arthur Shawcross is known as Genesee River Killer, and he's killed at least 14 people.
Rochester police have been called in for what may be the 13th victim in a string of homicides.
FBI and police think it's at least 19. He's told me it's a lot more than that. Writing to him was a form of therapy for me, and unwittingly, he was like a demon therapist for me. One aspect of Shawcross's crimes was that he did cannibalize some of these women. I feel it was his way of connecting to these people, and I could understand that and empathize with that. Even though Shawcross was a notorious serial killer, he was kinder to me and more fatherly to me than even my own biological father. We had a bond. It's a very exotic strain of deviance that few have to hunt humans. There's few people who could see eye to eye with that.
A very exotic strain of deviance. That just seems to glamorize a very sick sort of thing. Here's an excerpt from the book. Shawcross still never made me regret my eccentric ways, even as family members abandoned me along with all but the most intensively offbeat friends, and there were not many. You just heard what you said back on that tape. You said, this was a very exotic form of deviance, hunting humans.
Yes, it is, again, a very rare frequency of thought. And
that's not what you said. You said it's exotic.
I consider it an exotic form of evil, we'll say.
Clearly, Shawcross is not a role model. I mean, he's in prison for arson for 5 years, murder, 2 children for 25 years. He serves, half of that? They'll let him out because they say he's not a threat anymore. He then is convicted killing 12 women, gets 250 years. He says he kills for revenge. Cannibalism, misogynistic, he's racist, he has no remorse. And
well, the thing is,
this is the guy that you say is a good friend.
I mean, I admit it's beyond bizarre, and I don't mean to glorify it. It's very difficult to find people I could relate to, obviously.